So I titled the stream, Do the 49ers have huge problems looming? And I think that they really have two huge problems looming. And we'll get to one first and one last. The first one is the 49ers offensive line. And I'm just going to share my screen here because this might
Yeah.
be a little bit hard to say out loud, but if you see it, it might be a little bit easier. But this is Wayne Breezy, the Wayne Breezy. We love the Wayne Breezy. He
Breezy.
said this is the 49ers allowed pressures per PFF against the Ravens. Brendel had one, Banks had three, Trent had one, John Feliciano had three, Burford had four and a sack, McKivitz had 9 and 2 sacks. On the year, Colton McKivitz has 9 sacks, which is tied for third worst in the NFL. He also has 45 allowed pressures, which is ninth highest in the NFL. Burford also has the third worst pass blocking grade per PFF. Brendel's allowed 28 pressures. And now we're looking at a week where the Niners are down bodies. Trent Williams got injured in this game. He didn't practice, but he's not ruled out. Banks didn't practice, but not ruled out. Jalen Moore is out. I heard Mike Silver today on KNBR say that this game could be it could be patchwork with the offensive line. And we saw a little bit of that with Burford playing right tackle in that game for the Niners, and it didn't look too pretty. How much are you concerned about the 49ers offensive line going into the Commanders game?
Yeah, I mean, very. You don't know about if Trent's going to go, and you don't know if Banks is going to be able to go. That's the left side of your line. Brendel is the only guy in his spot really on the line that you know what you're going to get. And, Burford, Burford's going to be in there either at right guard or right tackle. McKivitz is an interesting player. He's had some really good games this year. The moment will never be too big for him, but he's not your prototypical, right tackle. He's been very good at times. He's smart, he's tough, he's competitive, but at the same time, he can be beat on the bull rush by the stronger defensive ends. I think he's better against strength than he is against speed. So, I mean, McGlinchey wasn't great last year, but he cost a lot of money. This year, you have Colton, and he's not been awesome, but he costs a whole lot less. So, I mean, that has a lot to do with it. They're probably going to look offensive tackle a couple times in the draft in April, and they're going to have to get by with what they have. And the question is it good enough to win a Super Bowl with? We're going to find out.
Yeah, and going into this season, there was a lot of debate whether, keep McGlinchey, go with McKivitz. Is McKivitz a starting right tackle on a Super Bowl winning team? I don't know that the Niners made the right decision by not re-signing McGlinchey, but I don't know if they made the right decision by starting Colton McKivitz. And I really like Colton McKivitz as a guy, but he really is what he was coming out of the draft, which is a Swiss Army knife at the offensive line position. He can play anywhere. And, right tackle is a very difficult. Tackle's the most difficult position to play on the line. And, he's getting beat up out there. So I don't say that. I'm not saying you got to cut McKivitz or, you have to get rid of him next year. I think you keep him, but as a
You
Swiss
definitely
Army
keep him.
6-man, not as a starting right tackle. And then Burford he's a guy that had a lot of people had high hopes for Burford, but he leads the team in penalties, and he's getting a lot of penalties called on him. And then the draft coming up, they're not going to have a high pick, and that's usually where the tackles go. Do you have a tackle that you've looked at late in the draft that you like? I mean, obviously the upper echelon tackles always go high in the draft, so it's pretty hard to get a good tackle. But I mean, even in this last draft, there was a lot of people screaming for Blake Freeland, who was the BYU tackle, right?
Big
And he went to
6'7" kid.
He went to the Colts, and he's playing really well. And the Niners drafted Cam Latu with their last third round pick when they could have gone in a different direction. So, do you have any thoughts on late first round tackles?
Well, yeah. I mean, first of all, history says that if they're going to be, good players, you're going to have to get them in the first round. So that's probably reality. But then there's also some really good second tier players, I think, as well in this draft. I mean, as far as the top of the draft, I mean, if you could get anywhere in the middle of the first round, J.C. Latham from Alabama. I mean, he's 6'6", he's 330. He's got great feet, super strong. I mean, in a lot of ways, the prototype right tackle for the next decade in the NFL. The guy's got a unique build, awesome athlete at that size. So yeah, I mean that's the guy, totally dominant. He has the potential to be just a Hall of Famer. I mean, he's just monster right tackle with great feet, great potential. Looks like an incredible prospect. And then I'm a big fan of Taliesin Fuaga from Oregon State, who's just great. I mean, this is one of the toughest offensive linemen in the draft. This guy would just absolutely destroy you in the run game. 6'6", 325. Just super competitive, super tough. Road grader, really good and strong against pass protector, but just a bulldozer as a run blocker. Fuaga. He's just nasty too. I've seen him just bury guys in the open field. He's really good, really more athletic than you think. So I like those guys for sure at the top of the first round. As far as later in the draft, I mean, the kid from Missouri, Javon Foster, is the guy that I kind of like a lot. He's just a big, gigantic offensive tackle for Missouri. Missouri's had a really good team. He's really athletic. He's tough. He's smart. Javon Foster, third round, probably.
Just going back to the Niners offensive line, and then we'll move on. The Niners cut Il Manning today, and they reinstated Matt Pryor back to the roster after they just released him, I think yesterday or the day before. Any thoughts on that move? I know that you're not a big Matt Pryor guy, and you are a big Il Manning guy, but Il Manning is one of those positionless offensive linemen right now. What are your thoughts on that transaction?
Well, I think Il Manning will be back. That'd be my thought. I mean, right now this is a shuffling because they need tackle help because who are your tackles? I mean, Jalen Moore's out with a concussion. Trent Williams, you don't know his status. So you got to have tackles. And they've got some inside guys. They've got Ben Barch who can play inside. They like him. Obviously Feliciano and Brendel. So, I mean, they feel they had some questions at tackle. I mean, Pryor has got NFL experience and he's a huge bodied guy with long arms. He's kind of slow footed. And I just kind of wonder, he hasn't played a lot of football this year. It looks like he's in better shape than he was, when he first came to the team. So we'll see. I mean, we'll see. I mean, they waived him. I'm not a huge Pryor fan. He is got the prototypical tackle size, so he looks the part for sure. We'll see if he can play efficient football. He's one of their options. Barch can play. He's played pretty much anywhere, so he could be a versatile option. They signed a guard today, Gutierrez, not to be confused with Alfredo Gutierrez. Yeah, that's what they're looking at. I mean, it's just right now they have got some, they could go to their practice squad. I do think Alfredo Gutierrez is on there. Corey Luciano is on their practice squad as far as backup offensive lineman. So, and then Jesse Davis is also on the club. He was just signed a few weeks ago. So that's what that's their depth right now. And we'll see if they got two really important games. I mean, I don't think Banks' injury or Trent's injury are like by any chance season enders. So they're going to be back. But the question is, can they win this week in Maryland against the Commanders without him?